Hi, let us understand how to set up Eclipse to do the development for Tomcat 9. I have downloaded the Eclipse version 2019-09 from this specific location, and I have downloaded the Enterprise Java Developers version. And that is available over here. Let me go ahead and create a new workspace so that I can go ahead and do the configurations right from the beginning. I'm creating a new workspace. Already my system is having the configuration for Java and I have installed the Tomcat. I'm going to configure the Eclipse to integrate the Tomcat server so that I can go ahead and develop the project within the Eclipse. Let me go ahead and create a new project. File, New, Dynamic Web Project. If it is not available, I can get into others and I can search over here, Dynamic Web Project. So it's going to ask for the runtime and the project name. Let me provide the project name, and I don't have the runtime. Let me go ahead and configure the runtime. Let me select Tomcat 9, and it's going to ask for the details where Tomcat is installed. I have installed the Tomcat in this specific location, and it's going to ask for the JRE. Already I have the JRE 1.8 configured using the Java Home, so it's going to provide the option to select JRE 1.8. So I can select the runtime that is configured. In single workspace, I can have multiple runtime. I have configured one single runtime, that is Apache Tomcat version 9. I am selecting that, and let me proceed to the next screen and provide the details in terms of the context root and where the content would be provided within the module, and whether this particular project should generate the web.xml. Let me go ahead and generate the web.xml and say finish. I do have my first project. Let me go ahead and create a new servlet. I can change the perspective depending on what type of project it is. I can change that to a Java perspective, or I can leave that as a Java EE perspective. So this is Java perspective. Let me go ahead and create a new servlet. Right click the project, say new, search for servlet. And where this particular servlet source code should get stored, it's going to provide the location. Let me provide the package. And what should be the class name, and what should be the superclass for this particular servlet. By default, it will select HTTP servlet. Say next. And any initialization parameter, if I want to pass, I can add it over here. And the URL mapping for this particular servlet is /first-servlet. As the name of the class, it will get added. And this configuration will get added into the web.xml. Asynchronous support, we will be seeing it as a separate chapter in the end. So I am leaving it as it is and proceed to the next screen, where I do have the option what are all methods should get generated. I'm going to have the method doGet, doPost to serve the get and post methods. And I don't want the constructor from the superclass. I'll leave it as it is. Say finish. It's going to generate the skeleton for my first servlet, where I can go ahead and add any code that I want to this particular servlet. And from servlet version 3, I can have the URL mapping as a part of the annotation using web servlet. We will be having a separate lecture on how to use the annotation or how to do the configuration using the web.xml. Let me go ahead and add a small code over here. As a part of the get method, I'm going to have the request and response object, where I'm going to set the content type for the response. Let me say the content type as text HTML, and I will be getting the writer object from the response object. Let me say print writer. Print writer is part of IO package. Let me do the import for this print writer, and let me write the HTML content using println method of print writer object, where I'm going to have the HTML body. Let me have a small test content. Let me close the body and the HTML tag. And even for the post, it's going to call the get method. So eventually the get method will get called. So what I have done, I have created a sample project, and I have created the template for the first servlet as a part of the get method. It's going to provide the response by setting the content type as HTML, and I'm going to write the HTML content using the print writer object. So whenever I invoke this specific servlet, it's going to write this specific HTML content as a response. Let me go ahead and execute this specific servlet, run on server. As I have configured the Tomcat 9, automatically that specific server will get started by having the hostname as localhost and the runtime Tomcat 9. And this particular project will get deployed into this specific server, and the server will get started localhost port 8080, and it will use the default browser available as a part of the Eclipse. And I am getting the response as a HTML content from the servlet. So this is the first servlet that we have done. So we have created our first servlet as a part of Eclipse, and we have executed as a part of the integrated server and got the response from the browser.